What is the main problem with Wales right now?
Well, the main problem is they're a team in transition. They're clearly trying to play a different way. It's a high-risk game. Looked at the stats before I came on. They've thrown 41 offloads in this tournament already. After 3 games last year, they threw 29 throughout the whole tournament. With that, obviously, comes the handling errors. Across the 5 games last year, they made 51 handling errors. In 3 games so far this year, they've made 45. So it's quite high risk, and it's not really sticking at the moment. We knew coming in, the Scarlets were renowned for the way they tried to play their game under Pivac. Lots of offloading, and when it really stuck, it was really hard to stop. Me and Andy covered the game against Bath in Europe a couple of years ago at the Rec. They were irresistible that day, but it was very, a few offloads had gone the other way, then that scoreline would have been totally different that day. So I think what we're seeing at the moment is Pivac trying to get, and Stephen Jones trying to get a group of players to play slightly more out of their shells, a lot more high risk rugby, and it's not really coming off at the moment because they're still experiencing these teething problems.
Yeah, Gatland always said, Andy, that he played a certain style of rugby that suited the players he had. Is Wayne Pivac trying to play a style of rugby that doesn't suit the players he has? Are the skills good enough to play that way?
Depends which team he selects, and of course he is governed by injuries as well. I think you need people like Rob Evans starting if you're going to play in your forwards. A skill game. If Corey Hill was available, he needs to play because he's skilled forward, so you need these skilled people. But like Justin Tippett, we haven't seen too much of his skills in the last 2 matches because Wales have been under pressure and struggling for the ball. It's alright to say, yeah, we're going to throw it around and make all these offloads and all, but you've got to do it at the right time. And there were instances on Saturday when Wales were trying to do it under pressure, and they should have put the ball. Yet at other times in the game they kicked when they could have run it back. So I think there's a bit of a mixed message at the moment that and it's going to take time. That all the players are not quite on message with what Pivac wants them to do. Take that scrum near just before half time, the sequence of scrums, and Wales should have walked over the try there because France had a man in the sin bin, so they moved that left wing. Fico into the pack.
He didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah, he was in the pack, packing down at number 8, I think. So Wales had all that space to the right because of the scrum's position near the sticks. All you needed was a 8 pick up, 9 bring halfpenny, 15 into the line. You had a 2-man overlap. You'd have walked in. New Zealand would have just canted over Australia there. Simple. But what did Wales do? Nobody called it. Nobody saw it. And that's not the responsibility of the coach. It's the responsibility of the players. All the backs lined up to the left. And they tried to shove their way over first one, then back there, and they got into a terrible tangle.
Okay, now Wayne Pivac wasn't a very happy man after watching that game. Here's what he had to say in the post-match press conference.
Yeah, I think there were quite a few key moments in that game. I think if you look at the first half, we gave back-to-back penalties away, which allowed them in for their first try, which is disappointing. But I think we applied a lot of pressure and obviously got back into that half. And just before half-time, there was a series of scrums. There was an issue there, and in the end there was a yellow card. It just seemed that whenever we were playing advantage, the next ruck there would be that was killed or the ball was slowed down, so we'd come back to the penalty. So we didn't get the advantage that we were probably looking for. And I thought we came out well in the second half, which is something we've talked about, and to score and get back to the 1 point. I think the momentum was with us, and obviously a 3v1 I think it was, and it's a 14-point turnaround there, so that was disappointing. But there's the slap down. We've had a good look at that, and I think the officials may have got that one wrong. So that's a bit of momentum there as well. And probably the other disappointing one was when the fresh tight head came on and we're on the line hammering away, and he went straight across the scrum and was rewarded for that. So those were big moments in the game. I think we scrambled very, very well. We created at the end of the game with some players playing out of position. Showed a lot of character to come back to have an opportunity to steal it at the end. Having said all of that, obviously the French played very well, and we have to take that loss on the chin. The scrums from our point of view had gone okay up until that point, and you've got to go in a forward motion, and it clearly went across the scrum. Yeah, George will go through the normal protocols, HIA, and Josh, I'm not too sure, was an ankle. Obviously we'll have to check him in the next day or two to see how severe that is.
Matt, Wales unhappy about 2 key things really, aren't they? The slap down that could arguably have been a penalty try, and of course that scrum with 10 minutes or so to go, which they lost. Wayne Pivac similar comments to what we heard after the Ireland game. Do you agree with him?
Yeah, I mean, when I saw it live, straight away I thought, oh no, that's exactly what they've been talking about all week. I thought Bamba went straight in on the hooker and straight across the front row on that angle. And he got rewarded for it. And, you know, you could have written the quotes before we'd spoken to Pivac. We knew it was coming. You know, I've watched the replays back, and I don't think it's quite as clear cut as I thought it was at the time. Although I think Wales have still got a pretty good case. You know, it's not a good look though for Wales at the moment, because they're complaining about the referee, and it's the second week in a row now, and it's kind of like people get tired of that very quickly, don't they? But I can kind of see where Pivac's coming from with the scrum, with the slap down. I thought I said when I came in here, and you agreed with me on Saturday night, everyone in the room knows that Will Emson knows exactly what he's doing. He slapped the ball out of Ken Owens' hands, but I think there's enough of the whole in the tackle sort of element to it that gives the referee an out. And as soon as his assistant Carl Dixon says to him, I think that's in the tackle, you can already see where Matt Carley was going with it. So I think that one's a little bit more 50-50. I can see why Welsh fans are aggrieved by it, and if it goes against your team, you're probably feeling aggrieved by it as well. So, you know, that one was a little bit more 50-50.
What do you make of the complaining then about the scrum?
Well, just with the Williams thing, the TMO, he only had a small input in that. He seemed to leave it to them on the pitch, to be honest. With the scrum, definite penalty to France. Rob Evans sheared away from that scrum. As the others. Oh, I think absolutely. And I could see by Rob Evans' reaction, he was a bit embarrassed by it. How he walked off, he was sulking a bit, if anything. You can see Bamba.
So why are Wales so convinced then that they were the wronged party?
Well, because they're looking for excuses. All coaches look for excuses, don't they? And who do they blame first? Always the referee. Something. So that's all. They just whinging over nothing. Bamba drove. Rob Evans folded in before Bamba. And then the Wales, 3 members of the Wales scrum sheared away from the scrum, and France were driving through. You know, everybody tries to go in on the opposition hooker, and you try to put pressure on the hooker by getting either side of it. It's a standard tactic. So, you know, Wales, Wales I think got caught cold at that scrum because they've been doing so well. Scrum Bamba had come on, that was his first scrum. I think if anything, perhaps they were a bit complacent.
Yeah, Dave here says though, I mean, if why are people having a go at Wales about the moaning? You know, if they feel the rules aren't being applied, then surely they should publicly complain.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, when we talked about changes for the England game, I don't think they'll make changes because they feel like they're being wronged at the moment.
Yeah, but that's a dangerous road to go down, isn't it? Because once you get that mindset, you're going down that, you've got that mindset, you're complaining and all the time, and you know, it's not only does it not look good, but you aren't any opposition initiative.
What about Mr. Biggar then? Because he's been a big talking point, not just him on the weekend. You had Owen Farrell, Johnny Sexton, they're all at it, aren't they? But this constant chat, complaining at referee, but Dan particularly, the arms in the air, the shrugs of the shoulders, the shakes of the head. Lots of people don't like it, do they? Is something he needs to curb, which I know people have said to him before.
He certainly needs to curb it. Yes, he does. He needs to leave it to the captain, Alan Wynne-Jones, to deal with the referee. You know, Biggar had this earlier in his career. He's admitted it himself, and he did curb it. And of course, he's waving his hands, and he's all a bit from the theatre. And he once said in an interview that he fancied being an actor. Well, he's obviously practicing now for a career after rugby. But what it does is turn off officials. Officials want to, you know, just deal with the captain and not a player who's in their face and all the time. However, I don't think his behaviour was as bad as Owen Farrell's at the weekend. I thought some of Farrell's behaviour against Ireland was disrespectful, petulant, and a lot more aggressive to the officials than Dan Biggar. Farrell should have been definitely yellow carded when he was holding on to Stander on the floor. And he reacted in a nasty way on a couple of occasions in that match. Sexton was pretty quiet actually because he had a shocker.
He did.
So, you know, Biggar, Alan Wynne-Jones or Pivac, they need to tell Biggar that Alan Wynne's the captain, let him do the talking. Because one of the strengths of Samuel Warburton when he was Wales captain is how he dealt with referees. You've got to get him on side, not turn them against you.
Do you think it is something that seems to be creeping in recently in the last year or so more than ever before, particularly in this Six Nations? Every game seems to have a really strong character who's not the captain right on the referee throughout the 80 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, we've touched on it. It's nothing new with Dan Biggar. It's always been the case. And, you know, whilst he did curb it a little bit a couple of years back, I don't think he was particularly worse in the France game than he has been in other games gone by. I was on the ref link again on Saturday. Didn't really hear him as much, certainly, as I did against Italy. I think what we've seen though is you've got against Italy, Wales had Luke Pearce. Saturday, Matt Carley, 2 referees from the Gallagher Premiership, probably quite familiar with Dan. Roman Poit as well, also very familiar with Dan. Listening to the way they communicate with each other, they know how to deal with him. They just wave him away. They know what's going to come. Referees will go through this thing before the game mentally, right, he's going to be quite vocal. They'll know what to expect from certain players who they're familiar with. And we saw in the Italy game where Luke Pearce turned to Neil Jenkins and said, Neil, deal with him before I have to deal with him. It's very calm, very measured, because they know what he's like. I don't know that it has a detrimental effect on the way Wales are being refereed, because at the end of the day, they were on the right side of the penalty count on Saturday.
Very much so.
So, if he was annoying Matt Carley, it certainly didn't affect his refereeing, and certainly didn't push him against Wales, did it?
I think the plus side, when I say it's not a plus side, we're bigger as well. It doesn't put him off his own game, even when he's doing all that. No. In fact, he was more fired up than ever the weekend, and you could argue it shows how competitive an animal he is. He just wants to win.
Yeah. It is a very fine line that as he always has had to be throughout his career. He has to be very careful with when he pushes it a little bit too far.
Yeah. Okay. 2 big injuries on the weekend as well. Obviously, Josh Adams went off, and George North, with that pretty horrific-looking head injury, went off as well. What's the latest on that, and what would you expect either of them to figure in the next game against England? Josh Adams looked awful, didn't it? The angle his ankle turned up.
Well, there wasn't much given away in the post-match press conference, as you'd expect. Particularly with concussions, coaches are reluctant to give away too much until they know exactly what the picture is. I'd suggest that the Welsh medical staff will have had a look at both of those players this morning, and themselves will now have a clearer picture of what the outlook is. So it's difficult to sort of predict whether they're going to be right for England. If they're not, then Wales have got some serious decisions to make in the back three, because you've lost 2 big players there. Regardless of the comments about North's form, he's on the team sheet, isn't he? So as for his concussions, you're going to have to let him go through the protocols, let the checks take place, see how he feels later in the week, because these things can take time to shift. Josh Adams' ankle will probably be a lot clearer, and I'd suggest we might hear stuff from Wales this week on that.
Yeah, I'd be more concerned if Adams was out, because he's a key strike runner for Wales and finisher. I actually think there's more chance of North being fit than Adams, because that Adams one didn't look very good. I would imagine if it was scanned, I would have thought he'd been icing up all weekend to try and keep the swelling down. Because if that does come up like a balloon, he's in trouble.
Yeah.
Even if it's a sprain, 2 weeks is, it's pretty tight schedule. Yeah,
just on North, Penny here raising obviously concern about North. We've seen him in the past lying there unconscious in matches. He's had some horrendous. He's had time out of the game. His speech was affected after one of the concussions a few years ago, and this is yet another one. He's about to become a dad. It must play on players' minds.
Yes, obviously concerning given his history, although it has been a few years since his last one. But with concussions, I think people, I guess, in the media have got a responsibility on this as well. You don't want to jump to conclusions. I'm not an expert when it comes to people's brains, unfortunately. I'm not qualified to comment on that particularly in any depth, so checks are going to have to take place. I know there are a lot of stories out there, particularly in American sport, about concussions. We're seeing it in football now as well, increasingly, with things like heading the ball. But the crux of it is he's going to be checked out by the right people. I've no doubt Wales may look to get that independent specialist back in, as they've done with Dan Biggar in recent weeks, and they'll take every precaution necessary. But on that, if he does pass all the tests, then I know it'll come, but I would be worried to see everybody start throwing their arms in the air and saying there's no way he should be playing again, because it's a really difficult balance to strike here, and there's a lot of people out there making comments on this who are not experts, and things like this need to be left to the experts.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Let's have a couple of questions then and comments to finish. Bridget says, it annoys me that some of the fans are getting frustrated. What we have to remember is it's all new for Wayne Pivac and the lads, and it's going to take time to get used to it. Another one here saying, are we in a transition phase? And if so, how long can we keep saying we're in a transition phase before it becomes an excuse?
Well, we're not in a transition phase because he's hardly made any changes to Gatland's team. So maybe they're just a slight transition in how they're trying to play, but to have a proper transition, he's going to have to make changes in personnel. What I would suggest, well, Wales, one thing he does need to address, we talked about Biggar, is who he actually plays at number 10. Because Wales played some fantastic rugby last season with Gareth Anscombe at 10, an attacking threat himself, made the defence honest, and that Jared Evans, I think, has done really well when he's been on the pitch in his Six Nations.
Dan Biggar's been excellent. He was one of Wales' best players again this weekend.
Yeah, Wales have won Six Nations with him wearing a starting number 10 jersey in 2013. That was 7 years ago. Yeah, he's a great player. Don't get me wrong, but you've got players who are a point of difference. Now, I'd argue Gareth Anscombe was a point of difference, attack-wise, and Jared Evans can be a point of difference. In fact, I actually thought at the weekend Wales worked really well when they had Evans at 10 and moved Biggar to inside centre, and where he crashed over for that try. Showed his appetite. I mean, Mike Ruddock said years ago they should have considered Biggar as an inside centre. Maybe it's too late now, but that'd be something out of the box.
Yeah, well, we like to hear that, Andy. As always, Craig says, what exactly is our defensive plan? So Byron Hayward's been getting a lot of stick. Wales are conceding a few tries in the game. Is that fair?
A little bit unfair for me. France scored a try off a spilled high ball and an interception. If those two tries are not scored, Wales win the game. And nobody's talking about the defence. Wales actually made 92% of their tackles, which is more than France, or a better percentage than France. So whilst I know Wales have conceded 27 points, so straight away everybody's like, whoa, what's going on with the defence? Yes, in Ireland there were a few system errors, I think. Wales got exposed on the outside. They got exposed on the outside once early on against France as well, but apart from that, I don't recall too many occasions where we were thinking to ourselves, what is going on here? I mean, the Willems have tried, McNichol defending that channel. I can't imagine he's supposed to be there, because you need to have him defending that channel seems like a mistake to me.
Yeah, but I think fans identified that because of Sean Edwards, because that's how Wales had been defending with Edwards, and they've used Ken Owen so often at the back of the line out, either the left or as the first stopper. If you like, remember when Wales got took apart by Australia, was it in 2016 in Cardiff? We saw at the end of Jamie Roberts' career, and that was one of the things pinpointed then. Wales didn't have a flank at the tail of the line out to race out there Ken Owens. So I think that came from Sean Edwards. He knew about that. It was a great ploy by France. Matt's right though. The other two Wales actually defended quite well against France. The other two tries was was an interception, and the bounce could have gone anywhere when Halfpenny failed to take that, which was a great bomb. What disappointed me with that one was either Josh Adams or Nick Tompkins should have swept round the back end just in case the ball went loose. But I guess they thought Halfpenny's so good under the eyeball he catches everything. So
what happened there was Josh Adams and Tompkins both ran a blocking line on the same player, and it left the French player with a clear run at Halfpenny. I think it was Teddy Thomas. So he had a clear challenge on Halfpenny. I think they should have probably communicated a bit better, and I think Adams it was who should have stayed on Thomas and run a little bit of a blocking line there, but I don't think there was massive defensive issues against France.
And out in Ireland about defending narrow, if you haven't got a lot of pace in your midfield, which Wales perhaps haven't, it's better to defend narrow and force people out, and then you can shuffle across, because if you're too wide, which there was instance against France, Wales were a bit wide, and I think a French player went outside Tompkins. I think it was a try that was disallowed for the forward pass. That if you get beaten in the middle and you've got to turn and chase, if you haven't got a lot of pace, that's when you really come unstuck. It's far better to force people to attack you and use the touchline as your friend. You've got a lot more chance of scrambling then.
Yeah. Okay. Final thoughts on England next. Then we'll go into a lot of detail of that over the
got 2 weeks now, John.
The coming week or so. That's exactly. Let's not go early on it. But just in a sentence or so, then how are you feeling about that?
It's an ominous trip, isn't it? England are playing very well at the moment. They'll be on, high on confidence now, having done that to Ireland. I've been to Twickenham 3 times to watch Wales and never seen them win there. So, perhaps I shouldn't go and cover the game in 2 weeks' time. But it's a big challenge, especially if the injuries are going to rule players out.
I'm not as pessimistic as Matthew. I'm more optimistic, in fact, because I don't think England are playing that fantastically well at the minute. A few individuals played well at the weekend, and that was a poor show from Ireland. Yet England's 2 tries in the first half. Yeah, good kicks behind, but Ireland should have dealt with them both. They were two soft tries, and Ireland as well missed a couple of easy kicks at goal. At half time, there might not have been hardly anything in it. I just think it shows that I know Ireland beat Wales, but I just think it shows that players like Sexton and Conor Murray in terminal decline for Ireland. England actually didn't create a lot in our match, and I would imagine Eddie Jones is not a happy man because they failed to get that bonus point, which could cost them the title, and Ireland scored right at the end, which also cut their points difference. So I don't think England are fantastic creativity wise. If Wales can go there, get their set piece right, and then work at the breakdown, because England did take Ireland apart at the breakdown yesterday, that Wales are in with a chance.
And just one final thought on that: if it's a structured game, England will win, right? So I think Wales and this frenetic style of play almost that they're bringing in now is the way to go about it at Twickenham, because I think if it's going to be a set piece, bang it up the middle kind of game, England are going to win that because they've got too much power. But if Wales go in there and start throwing offloads everywhere and it sticks, they could win by 20 points. But if they try that and it goes wrong, they'll lose by 20 points.
To play that sort of game, you need people with good feet who can beat defenders, people like Liam Williams if he's fit, people like Jared Evans.
Yeah. Okay, thanks boys, we'll leave it there today. Thank you for joining us as always. Thanks for all your comments and questions. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, same place. We'll see you then.